This, ladies and gentlemen, is exactly what happened when a Mets team that's had the fourth worst record in all of major effing, I can't even talk right now, major effing league baseball over the past 3 calendar months has to rely on a 22-year-old who was in AA no later than a month and a half ago to come out and to be the savior against Jacob deGrom and his 3-year-long final return to Citi Field to face this Mets team. How do you think it was going to happen? We were hoping for a pitching masterclass of a battle between the two, and instead we had ourselves a disaster class. Jacob deGrom was not striking out guys like he typically does, but he still goes 7 easy innings against this Mets team as Jonathan cannot even get out of the first. And I better not see one schmuck fan in the live show or to our replay viewers comment it, because you're a schmuck and I'm going to continue to call you exactly that. This is not on Jonathan. Was he horrendous today? Yes, but how much of that is that on Jonathan versus the fact of the matter that the Mets felt inclined to call up their 22-year-old pitching prospect that spent the majority of the season in AA, not because of just Tong's dominance, but more so because the Mets were in desperation mode. This is what we called out. This is why I said going back months ago, at minimum a month earlier than what the Mets did, they should have called up Noah McLean. The Mets with the kids this year entering this outing had a 2.4 ERA with the kids. With any other starter in that span, a 6+ ERA. I know Tong's numbers are horrendous today. He gave up a couple walks. He gave up contact that we saw opposite field bloops that came to bite him right away. He was throwing the changeup what felt like a million times. He did not trust his fastball early. He was looking completely opposite from his last outing and how he initially approached this offense now, the Texas Rangers. That came back to bite him. But this is not about Jonathan not getting the job done nearly as much as it is on the fact of the matter that the Mets had ample opportunity to rewrite this script. They had ample opportunity to do something about this rotation the first half of the season. They had ample opportunity to do something greater than sitting on their hands and staying as conservative as possible to make this team better. I know Tong was not good tonight. We're going to talk more about his struggles, I promise you, but I better again not see a single schmuck of a fan out here going out of the way to rag on this kid and say how bad he is. He is our top pitching prospect. He may very well be better than McLean and Sproat and whatever they're going to have to offer in their future in their careers here. That is how coveted Tong is. We have to uplift the kid the same way that fans at the stadium were. Even when he was getting rocked, they were still standing on their feet for him to get those strikes. Why? Because those are the fans that are showing exactly what it means to be not only a Mets fan right now, but to understand the context of how we got as doom and gloom as we have now. The Mets have themselves to blame. They put themselves in this position. And as I said over the past month, leading to Jonathan's call-up, I'm so excited to see what Tong can do. But listen, if there's a role where they get rocked, any of these kids, it is not on them nearly as much as it is on this Mets front office down for deciding that we have to now rely on the kids because we have no other ample options. It's almost like you had an entire season, an entire first half, where Kodai Senga went down with injury, where Tyler McGill goes down with injury, where Griffin Canning goes down with injury, where Sean Manaea and Frankie Montas show you from the start this year that they're not reliable, that Clay Holmes shows you that he is in fact a reliever, which is why he's a 5-and-die pitcher. The writing has been on the wall for months on end. This team, front office, David Stearns down, has themselves to blame for their continued incompetence this season. The Bats had something going that we saw against Jacob deGrom early in this one. Alvarez with a nice little oppo bomb that he was excited about because Alvy hasn't done anything since returning from his latest injury. You look at the rest of the offense, a nice little sac fly by Soto, a sac fly by Alonso, but that is all the Mets had to cook up offensively in this one. They go down, they roll over for the most part, and again, I cannot blame the offense today either, because when you are down 6 runs throughout the first inning before Jacob deGrom even toes the rubber, I'm going to go on a limb and say you're going to lose that ball game. I'm going to go on a limb and say to myself, you know what? It's almost like the Mets are guaranteed to drop their 7th consecutive ball game, which is why, as we didn't even finish the first inning, I put out on X that the Mets have already lost. And some people gave me flack, and I never go out my way to do that unless I'm that confident. Today was one of those days. And you want to know why? Because if there's one thing that I'm so confident about as a Mets fan that covers them every single day and have for 5 effing years, I've covered every aspect of what Steve Cohen has done as he first became owner for this team. And as someone who's covered the Mets more than anyone else probably on the planet right now on a daily basis in the content space the past 5+ years, I can tell you that by God, when it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, damn it, it's a duck. I love that saying that goes from my family, as they would say when I was younger. What that simply means is when the Mets have played horrendous baseball for 3 months in a row, what makes you think today's going to be any different? Oh, it's a blackout Friday night. You got the fireworks going. You got Jacob deGrom returning. Surely it's going to be magical. The only thing magical about this ball game was the fact that the Mets got any semblance of life against deGrom after they were down 6 runs in this ball game, because this was an offense that easily could have rolled over right away and had nothing to show. And deGrom has himself a 12 strikeout outing across 7 or 8 dominant innings. That did not happen today. It was a little bit of a mix. Jake still gives you the length that the Rangers are looking for. He only strikes out 2, but he gives up some early hard contact to the Mets and then makes up for it after the fact because he's still Jacob effing deGrom. No one should be surprised by this. The only Mets fans watching this post-game show right now, presented by our amazing sponsors at SeatGeek, utilize our promo code. That way you too get Wardy10. Utilize our promo code Wardy10. That way you too get 10% off your next ticket purchase. Link down below, everybody. And Moomoo, the official trading platform of the New York Mets. What we have seen all season long is more of the same. It's a continuation. So until we have any semblance of reason to suggest otherwise, we are entering every single ball game as a collective fan base right now, expecting this team to falter. I know that most of you guys are not hoping that the Mets lose. I never hope the Mets lose. I hope they win the next 14 effing games that they have, but the reality is that is not going to happen. The reality, the matter of fact now, is that the Mets are in the same exact standing as the San Francisco Giants and the Cincinnati Reds. What do they have all in common? They all have the same amount of losses this season. The Mets just have one measly game up on the Reds, one up on the Giants. If the Reds and or Giants win today, it's basically wraps on the wild card. Can the Mets control their destiny still? Yes, but what they have done over the past 3 months is spend this entire tenure of a baseball season losing all of their ground in the playoffs. The Mets have lost over 15 games in ground and playoff standing since their demise has begun going back to June 13th this season. They have no one, and I mean no one, else to blame but themselves. There is only one man that you can rightfully say to not blame on the offensive end, and of course my camera has to go out of focus. I'm going to chuck my mic right now, driving me up an effing wall. Why does it have to do this right now? Come on, lock in. Lock in, camera. I know you want to lock in. Come on. The only single Mets batter that has stayed consistent the past 2 months. The only man that looks like he knows what he's doing on a daily basis for a larger stretch than anyone else this season for the most part is the same man that the Mets spent $765 million on in Juan Soto. If your name is not Juan Soto, you have not been consistent. You have not been a dog, and you have most certainly been a factor, more than likely, behind some of the woes, if not significant woes, for this Mets team. This rotation is fickle. It's a joke. Its offense is so Jekyll and Hyde. And again, how much blame can you put on a Mets offense like today when they're supposed to face Jacob deGrom while already down 6 runs in the first inning? Jacob deGrom never had run support of 4 runs or more as a New York Met, and he got 6 runs as a Texas Ranger in the first effing inning of the ball game today. Disgusting. Disgusting is this entire Mets effing team, and that's why usually this is a normal post-game show where we can be happy to break down the victory, get into all the fun numbers, tell you guys how much I'm loving this team right now. You live react with me. I'll take some callers. I'll answer your comments, questions, and concerns. We'll have a good old dandy time, but I don't remember the last time we had a good old dandy time, because even when the Mets had their offense rolling, even when they were clicking the way that they were supposed to, that we saw in the month of August, the Mets still went 11-17 in that month. Fool's gold is what it is. The Mets have not played consistent baseball since the month of May, and even then, when they played consistent baseball, they still had their clear flaws, and we were all just waiting for the dominoes to fall, headlined by a pitching rotation that was far exceeding expectations, and a Mets offense that was laboring a quality hit with runners in scoring position. Mario, great member of 4 months and works there at Citi Field. Work was asked today, he says. Time for the Etsy, which I'm doing it. You got to do it, Mario. Thank you so much for being in here, here, my guy. He works at Citi Field. He's a dog. He attended Wardy Day with us on August 1st. We appreciate him a lot. Thank you so much, KCB, with the $10 holla. I appreciate that. Rebecca says, I am done with Soto. You better be talking about, if you're talking about Juan, I don't know what you're smoking, but past I hear that has to be some good stuff. Juan Soto is not the problem this year. Stop trying to correlate the one bright spot with this team this year as to why this team has much struggles as they do. You could argue that, okay, the Mets allocate so much money in Soto that they didn't allocate enough in other areas in their rotation. Sure, make that argument, but the Mets did not sign Juan Soto for even a second to have that hinder the other moves that they were going to make for this roster throughout the offseason heading into 2026. It's nonsense. Let's not suggest it as anything otherwise. Juan is not the problem, and only a schmuck would say that right now. Casey, and I love you, Rebecca, but what are we doing here? Casey, great member. Thank you so much for the donation. 2 weeks in June, Mets lost Senga, Canny, McGill, Kranick, Nunez. After losing Minter, Young, Minaya, and more. All depth was gone and it trickled down. Sorry, but what GM can replace 2/3 of the rotation mid-June? You don't need to replace 2/3 of the rotation, Casey, but you have to do something. And that is where David sat on his hands and decided to do absolutely nothing. He had an opportunity to trade before the deadline, a month before the deadline at minimum, for veteran options that were actually already available that maybe you'd have to pay a smidge more of a premium, and by a premium, it still wouldn't be a lot in the grand scheme of things. The Mets had an opportunity to consider calling up Noah McLean after he was dominating, after quickly getting the call from AA to AAA in the first half of the season. The Mets could have easily called up Noah McLean in the month of July, and they chose not to. They could have at least somewhat to a degree considered him towards the end of June, even though he didn't have as much of a sample size. They should have, could have, would have. They didn't, and now they have themselves to blame. David Stearns is not the sole factor behind the demise of this rotation this year when it comes to injuries. But where he's a heavy factor is not being cognizant or wary enough of how injury plagued a lot of these pitchers were entering the season, seeing Sean Manaea and Frankie Montas go down, and when they go down, you still decide to yourself that you're not going to add to the rotation immediately. The Mets had an opportunity to bring the veteran back in Jose Quintana. They chose not to, because with the bonus, with 100% tax or so on the Steve Cohen tax, it would have been north of $9 million on a one-year deal that the Mets didn't like. Here's the thing, though. Jose Quintana would have done wonders for this rotation this season, even as a soft-tossing southpaw. You want to know why? Because he can eat innings and he can actually keep you relatively in the ballgame. That's what he's done to a great degree for a Brewers team that's going to go and have themselves, hopefully for their sake, a deep playoff run. I don't know what the Mets are going to do this year, but what I do know is that they are most certainly just knocking on the door to exit postseason contention. They are so close to being out that we are reaching the point that Mets fans actually want them out of postseason contention, because they're so sick and tired of this sorry team playing sorry baseball for 3 months in a row. And I don't blame them. I don't want to see this team lose, but I don't blame any fan right now that's disgusted and fed up and wants nothing to do with the ball club right now. I sadly, whether I want to or not, cannot dissociate from the club, because this is the demise of covering a baseball team for a living. That is me, your guy Wardy here. Thank you so much for hitting that like and subscribe button on your way, and help us get a 300 plus likes to all of our live and reoccurring viewers. I appreciate that. We're going to break down the game in its entirety here in a second. I'm going to rapid fire it, though, because as I mentioned earlier, in a summary fashion, basically what I summarized is a continuation of what happened. Huascar Brosman, Ryan Stanek, 8 innings for the Mets, and they were far from the problem. Who would have thought that here on this day that Jonathan would get rocked to that degree? I had a level of concern with Tong today after what we saw his last outing against Jake at home for this Friday game, but I also thought that the vibes would be there. Shame on me for thinking that we were going to get something greater than what we did in Tong today, but back to my main point regarding him, yes, he did not look good today. He'll be the first to tell you that, but the last thing we should be doing is beating up on the kid who's a 22-year-old top pitching prospect who got rushed to the bigs this year because the Mets' incompetence with none, and I mean none, zip nada, of the reffing rotation with their veterans providing consistency. Kodai Senga looked rock solid at 8 strikeout ball across, I believe, north of 6 innings for AAA Syracuse in his rehab today. That's great and all, but if we're being completely frank, just how much is Kodai Senga maybe looking good again going to be a needle mover down the stretch? We have 2 weeks left to play. To have the Mets already put their nails in the coffin, can they dig themselves out of the hole that they find themselves in? I genuinely do not know. It's a wait and see, and it's an absolute shame that it has been to the degree that it has been this season, because we have to stay locked in if you're a fan like me. Not just because I cover them, but because I'm a sicko and I live and die with this team. So knowing that the Mets are still technically in a wild card spot, I gotta be zoomed in and locked in on every single aspect of what they do and what the teams that are trying to crawl up their ass right now for that final wildcard spot can do as well when it comes to their winning ways. That's why we're looking at the Giants and we're looking at the Reds tonight. They're in their West Coast games. Dave with a $5 holla. They all need to be fired. This is the worst Mets team I've seen in my lifetime. I'm done with them. Dave's fed up, and Dave loves this Mets team. He's so committed to this Mets team. If Dave's throwing in the towel, you know it's a problem. Thank you so much for that, Dave. 11 says with the $2 holla, bring the alumni to pitch the rest of the season. The Mets do have their alumni game at Citi Field tomorrow, and I would take every single one of those guys over the schmucks that we have towing the rubber right now for the most part. Thank you so much for that donation. I appreciate that. Let's go down here and get to some more comments, and then let's break down this ball game. And again, everybody, I got to ask you point blank. I said it yesterday. I'll say it again. I will continue to ask you every single day, and it is as follows. Do you guys think the Mets will make playoffs this year? It's a simple yes or no question. Don't overthink it. Just spam in the live chat. If you think yes, say yes. If you think no, say no. Jonas says with the $2 holla, this team doesn't deserve to be in the postseason. And I don't blame you for saying that because the Mets have been a bad team more this season than they have been a good team. And they are now just 4 games above 500. What a pathetic, sorry shit show that you call the New York Mets. And I apologize for the profanity, kiddos. I'm not trying to bother anybody. I realize that happens with the profanity at times, but it's really hard for me to not be unhinged, even with the writing on the wall, because again, I have to spend every evening watching this team in its entirety. I have to go out and cover them. I do not enjoy anything about this right now, but I have to, because someone needs to sacrifice themselves. The Mets may not show up, and they may have not shown up for 3 months on end right now, but at least this sorry fan is going to for the thousands of you guys watching live on a replay. So thank you kindly for the support. You guys are what keep the show afloat, obviously, and you're amazing. Peter with the $2 holla says, Mr. Harvard sat on his ass when the Mets slipped 20 games. Appreciate the donation. I don't think you're wrong. Really do appreciate that, my guy. Thank you kindly for that. We got more comments here. We got Juliet with the donation. Let's see what Juliet has to say. We got a lot of Mets fans thinking that the Mets are still going to make playoffs this year. I love the optimism, but I'm just trying to find where the reasoning for the optimism is, because I can't find it anywhere right now. All I see as a Mets team, free falling. That's literally how it feels. We've been saying that. That's continued. Juliet with a $5 holla. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm not putting this all on Mendoza, but I feel he does not manage with enough urgency. No, Mendy has been behind the 8 ball the majority of the season. This is not a personal slight on Mendy, as it's just a matter of fact. We can call it how it is. He has not had a good sophomore year as a manager, nor has this Mets team been good. And what have I told each and every one of you? And this is something that I really need to reiterate this. And Wardy, I still believe, says George with a $2 holla. George, I love that you still believe. Be prepared to get hurt in case things don't go in your favor. But I love the fact that you're optimistic. And I need you guys to carry that optimism for me, because usually as someone who's typically there with the optimism, I am not there right now. I am nowhere to be seen. So I sincerely apologize. I'm usually the internal optimist. I got nothing today. Zip, nada, I got nothing to show. And the reason why I got nothing to show is because the Mets have literally little to nothing to show for 3 months on end. They have themselves to blame there. So let's get into this and let's talk about the key point that I want to make. What has been the commonality with every single season except 2024 under Steve Cohen? And I would like to make clear, this is not a slight on Steve. I'm just making a point. Since Steve Cohen has become owner of this New York Mets team, with the rate that they are at right now, with the rate that they are currently at, they have rolled over and died and failed to meet expectations in 4 of the 5 years that Steve Cohen has been owner. Think about it. They crashed and burned early in 2021. They crashed and burned late in 2022. They crashed and burned early in 2023. They did not crash and burn in 2024. And you want to know why they didn't crash and burn in 2024? Kiddos, get ready for this, class. I don't know if you know this. Let me enlighten you. It's because they didn't have expectations. When you're 11 games below 500 in the month of May or so, wow, color me shocked. It's almost like every team's going to write you off. All it took was a veteran in JD Martinez to say, everyone thinks we suck. Let's go out and prove them wrong and say that we don't suck. The media had already ran them off. I had already ran them off for the most part. Most in the game today had ridden the Mets team off last year. And I said the season isn't officially over, but it looks downright horrendous right now. 11 games in a pit the way that they were. And they chipped and they clawed and they found themselves getting all the way back. And who was reaching the top there to find this Mets team at 500? It was Jose Effie Iglesias, Francisco Lindor playing like an MVP, and this team having that never say die mentality no matter who they played. There was nothing about this team in 2025. What we we see is the same shit that we saw in all the other years under Steve Cohen. And that is, again, when you have expectation, when you are a team that was 21 games above 500, when you're being deemed as a top dog along the Dodgers, the Phillies, and others in the National League, you're expected to stay in that conversation. Instead, the Mets took that expectation, flushed it down the drain, and said, shut up, buddy, not a chance in hell it happens. They have the 4th worst record in baseball for 3 months in a row. This is not a short-term problem that leads to short-term solutions. This is a long-term problem, and the Mets have not had the long-term solution. So again, for everybody first chiming in live on a replay, if this is your first time watching my post-game show, I apologize how negative I am, but how can I not be negative as a proper counter when you lose 7 consecutive ball games? The Mets had a losing streak of losing 15 of 18 the first half. They lost 14 of 16 as we got into the month of August. Why should any actual rationally minded, even emotionally erratic like myself, Mets fan, think for a second that this team is going to go anywhere this year? There is nothing to suggest that exact thing. I would love to be proven wrong, and I would love to see this team get on a run. I'm salivating at the mouth at the thought of it because I'm so desperate. I'm like that kid that hasn't had water in a week, and you finally get a drop, and you're like, oh my God, finally, I got something after you had that week-long fast or so. The Mets haven't done anything good on the consistency front for the majority of the season, and I really hope you guys understand that, because the more you understand that is the more that's going to be an easier pill to swallow with the way that this team continues to flounder, continues to roll over, and continues to die here in the 162. At least McNeil cares. Thank you for the donation. I appreciate that. Listen, Jeff does care, but I think Jeff hurt the team there, if I'm being honest. And I love Jeff. I love what he's been doing this year, and I haven't said that in a couple years now, but Jeff to freak out and have his overreaction on a strike 3 call that was a borderline just below the zone on deGrom, in which they're always going to give to when we've seen 10 times worse egregious calls this year. I get the frustration, Jeff. I know the team has sucked for a while now. I think your remarks were honestly more of what's been built up for the past couple weeks at minimum. But Jeff, we needed you in the lab today. The Mets were still within this ball game when Jeff was ejected, and he's a guy that knows deGrom very well. He, I'm sure, can grind out quality at bats against deGrom. But by losing him to bring in the ice cold Ronnie Mauricio off the bench when he hasn't been in the lineup much at all the past couple weeks, that was a further demise for this Mets lineup. So again, Jeff has been great this year. I'm actually faulting him for that. I did not think that that call was nearly egregious enough to act like a little kid there the way that he did in that instance. And I also think the umpire's an asshole. Pardon my French, I gotta say, what a piece of garbage he is for ejecting him right away just for having a typical F-bomb and saying, God, freaking out about the call. Everyone does it. Jeff is the same man who felt like every single day throughout 2021, 2022, etc. would yell F-bombs every single ground out he had down to first base, but now it's a problem when he has a little strike 3 call that doesn't go his way. Brett Beatty makes a remark there with the ump afterwards that was interesting to see. Mendy didn't do anything about that. Mendy did not step up and defend his player, and usually I would want Mendy to, but honestly, today was one of those days I didn't hate the fact that he didn't, just because I feel like it's only going to hurt the team more if you have less people that you need in the dugout, not in the dugout when you're already losing 6 consecutive ball games. Let's be realistic for a second. I personally did not like the fact that Jeff reacted the way that he did, and I think that him ejecting himself only hurt this team more. Not something that I usually say. I'm usually the kind of guy that's like, I love Jeff being a hothead. I love the emotion. I love the flair. Yeah, give it to him. It was a bad call. It was a bad call, but it's too borderline for a strike 3 against Jacob deGrom to get your panties in a twist. That's just how I feel about it, and I will stand on that even if you guys disagree. Jonah, thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate that. Will $1,000 get you to St. Tom Petty's Free Falling? Of course it'll get me to St. Free Falling. Bar's low here. I need the money for obvious reasons, for my family, for the platform. Send the dough over. I will sing Free Falling right here, right now, without a problem. You guys want to do a little sing along? We don't want to do a karaoke night. Just keep slinging the dollars. But in all seriousness, please don't send that, because I don't want that. I don't want your money for that reason. Please. Thank you, though. I appreciate it. Moonshadow with the $10 Hollow States of Folly. Wardy, I'm so overreacting when I say Stearns is everything wrong with analytics. That's wrong. And the reason why that's wrong is because Stearns has again done things right for this organization. The problem, and we can all agree, is that everything has fallen flat on its face from the rotation with the injuries, and he did not make more proactive decisions when he had an opportunity to do so. That is where he is at most fault, as well as bringing in pieces this past offseason that also went down with season-ending injuries. It isn't his fault, but oh my God, you could have not drawn up a worse second year for Mets president baseball operations. It is everything has fallen flat on its face, literally everything. And all the main things that we critiqued that we were concerned by heading into the year mounted and showed itself right there, flat in front of our faces, and it didn't take a rocket scientist to see this one coming, but unfortunately for David Stearns, it most certainly was the case. Thank you for the donation. I appreciate that. Dave says, at least Neil cares. Thank you for that donation from earlier. Care about with the $5 holla. Happy to see McNeil fight back a little tonight. You can tell he's frustrated. Again, I don't blame him for being frustrated. I understand that frustration, but we need Jeff in the lineup today. All right, he's a pivotal batter in this lineup, especially when he has seen deGrom more than most of this core group going back to Jake's days with the Mets. I was relying on the Nemos and on the McNeils especially to have big games tonight. Neither of them were able to do exactly that, and that was unfortunate. Michael Saya with the $5 holla. Thank you, Michael. Mets do not control anything now. They are in three-way tie now in the loss column, and a three-way tie. And mind you, just for some context, they already are tied basically for that final wildcard spot because the Reds have the tiebreaker on them. So because the Reds have the tiebreaker, all they need is a victory, and they basically have already leapfrogged the Mets in that regard. That is how down bad we are. The Reds play the A's tonight. Whoop-de-doo. I'm fully expecting a Reds series win. We see the Dodgers playing the Giants tonight. So the Dodgers might be able to help settle down the Giants and their continued winning ways, but even then, we're just going to have to wait and see. Michael, thank you for that donation. Let's see. My only warning is be careful with hindsight. I get fans being upset. Stearns prioritized keeping prospects and trades, kept the rookies deep breath. Don't let it destroy your mental health, fans, please. And I know it's easier said than done when this team consumes us as much as it does. Casey, thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate that, my guy. Thank you kindly for it. And yes, this is one thing I'll say. A lot of people are going to give hell to David Stearns. I get it. If the Mets don't make playoffs this year, how can you not give hell to this team front office down? It has to be said. It has to be noted. Having said that, though, do I think the Mets are going to go the lengths of firing a Stearns, of firing a Mendy? No, because that is not how you build a sustainable structure of an organization. The Mets will be doing more harm than good if they decide to do clean house again heading into 2026. I promise you it would do more harm than good, because a direct factor as to why the Mets have not had consistency under Steve Cohen is because they've had almost a different manager, a different GM every single season. When you look at the best teams in baseball, what do they have in common? Having the same front office and manager locked down more than likely for a good stretch of time. It takes time to build this. You're going to go through trials and tribulations. Unfortunately for the Mets are going through hell right now, and that has been the case not just the past week of losing a week's worth of baseball in a row, 7 straight games, but we're talking 3 consecutive months of baseball of just dreadful play. Thank you guys so much for those. I appreciate that as well. Care Bear, thank you so much for making Heck a member in the chat. I appreciate that. Heck most certainly deserves it as well. He's been a long-time follower here. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for it. Dave says, taps should be the jingle until the Mets win. Seriously, thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate that. I really do. Dave, you're amazing. Pat W with a $5 holla states the following: just awaiting the Stearns-Mendoza press conference so they can sit there and say, oh, this is baseball, nothing changes. I know, we're all not looking forward to that, to say the least. Peter with the $2 holla. Free falling should be the jingle until a win. It really should, but I'm going to get, unfortunately, flagged by the music industry if I actually go the lengths to try to play that. So I will not do that, but I like the way you think. Jonathan with a $2 donation. Thank you, Jonathan. Bring back a Buck petition. Consider this a down, but no. Jonathan, I appreciate the donation, but the Mets would be taking 5 steps back if they brought in the grizzled veteran and Buck Showalter to come back. And you want to know why? What good did Buck Showalter do in the grand scheme of things for this organization? Yes, he helped bring vibes and bring excitement back to the team in 2022, no doubt. But you want to know how that year ended in 2022? That collapse in 2022 is right up there with some of the most frustrating in recent years as a Mets fan. If I'm going to be honest with you, I care a hell of a lot more about the Mets playing 500 baseball in the easiest strength of schedule month of August that they had there in 2022. The easiest strength of schedule in all of baseball, and they played right around 500 ball. That was the start of their demise. Then we saw this Mets team also go out, and what do? They get swept in Atlanta to lose the division lead. And then they roll over and die and lose in a 3-game set at home against the Padres. So no, I don't love the idea of bringing in Buck that started off hot but couldn't get the job done in the end, which has been the case for him his entire tenure as a manager. Not a personal slight on Buck. I love a lot of things about Buck. I thoroughly enjoyed him when he was here in a lot of ways, but that ship has sailed, and there's a reason why he's never going to manage for a Major League Baseball baseball team again. And there's also a reason why the Mets were this anomaly of an exception for him, getting $5 million plus in average annual salary when he signed with this Mets team to take him out of basically unofficial retirement because teams didn't want him for a bit. Hadn't managed since the final bad years with the Baltimore Orioles for a while. Fast forward now, the Orioles are bad again, but that's a discussion for a different day. What we have to talk about now, everybody, is what went wrong for this Mets team and what was another deflating loss, this time against Jacob deGrom and the Texas Rangers. For Phil Maton to finish this ball game, I thought that was just so chef's kiss, perfectly fitting in more ways than one. The story of the Mets season is the former Mets coming out to kill them every chance they get. It was Harrison Bader the past 4 days, and now it's Jacob deGrom and Phil Maton a day later. Alvin with a $2 holla. Thank you so much. Keep Tong out there and let him get the experience. I don't hate that idea, honestly, if the Mets actually get themselves out of it. But I think what's going to happen, barring changes, is that Tong is probably going to get sent down and Kodai Senga is going to get the call back up in the next week and a half. That is my guess right now. I'm not saying it's a certainty. I would like to see Tong out there. I don't want that to be Tong's final start of the year because that's such a bad way for him to hang his head on when we know that obviously he can be better. We all saw him be better. We all saw how he looked against the Marlins. We all saw him look against the Reds and still give the Mets quality of length. And I really think that Tong would just have the nervous jitters going at a Friday night game with so much on the line. The Mets have been free falling. We are relying on Tong to be a quality starter for us, and that's problem number one. You can't rely on the kids, but we have to rely on the kids because there's no other feasible option for the club right now. Add that with facing Jacob deGrom, a surefire guy that looks like he very well could go down as one of the best starters of our generation, the way that he dominated with the Mets and is now dominating with the Texas Rangers. There was so much heading into this matchup tonight, and it's easy to see a 22-year-old with just 2 starts on his resume to get shelled, to look uncomfortable, and to just not have his stuff early in this ball game. When you're at north of 40 pitches in the first inning, of course you're going to pull him. That's why, again, I'm not going to sit here and give a lot of flack on Jonathan. It sucks that it happened. No one was happy to see it happen. I was frustrated to see it happen, but it doesn't change the fact that he's just getting his career started. He very well could be towing the rubber for the Mets for the next decade plus. For all we know, the least that we should do is be easy on him. We've been rough on this team, but the kids are far from the problem. It's not their fault that they get thrown in this mess, thrown in the fire, because every veteran and their mother can't play competent baseball. Peter, thank you so much for the $5 holla. I appreciate that. Danny Barnes is a strategy coach since 2022, and his strategy sucks. Get him out. No, he has not been good. I agree. I think the Mets need a clean house with Eric Chavez and not Danny Barnes. Are you talking about Danny or Jeremy? Because now you're getting me thrown off. Because maybe there's multiple Barnes that we're talking about. I think you're talking about Jeremy, but regardless if you're talking about Danny too, I agree. We got to get them all out of here. You want to know what the Mets are going to do? They are going to get rid of them. If you think for a second that the Mets are going to run it back with this same hitting coaching staff, I got a bridge to sell you. Eric Chavez. Eric, I know you might see this right now, my friend. Enjoy your next 2 weeks at minimum because you're likely going to be your last year in Flushing, Queens. And I don't say that as a way to completely dox you. However, I will say that I can't stand coaches like yourself that are the petty ones that go out of their ways to make the remarks that you make on social media after the Mets play good baseball for three weeks, yet completely ignore what they had done all season long. I have a big gripe when a team on this payroll doesn't play to expectation when you are clearly a factor as to why. You might not be the sole factor. You might not even be the driving factor, but you got to get rid of these guys. These are not the David Stearns picks. As much as you guys might gripe about David Stearns right now, he still needs to make more of his own hires in this organization. And he allowed it to be grandfathered, that being in Jeremy Barnes and Eric Chavez for this hitting coaching staff. You look at Jeremy Hefner, same applies. You really have to sit and wonder what the Mets are going to do when it comes to coaching staff and aspects of their front office should they continue to roll over and die in what has been nothing short of a dreadful 162 covering, let alone watching this New York Mets team. I'm really curious to every single one of you guys in here where you guys think is going to happen. Mendoza and all the coaches should all be held accountable. They are going to be held accountable. But what I'm trying to say, Camp, is that unlike Mendy, we will see more than likely a firing of Eric Chavez and or Jeremy Barnes. Because unlike Mendy, Jeremy Barnes and Eric Chavez have been here for multiple years, and they provided little to nothing on the actual turnout of what this Mets offense is supposed to be. When you do not perform to expectations, when you're on the largest payroll in baseball outside the Dodgers, by God, you need to play better baseball than what you have for this long of a stretch. There needs to be a statement made. We said this going back months ago. The Mets did not make that statement. They instead called up Noah McLean and got some great offense in the month of August, and they were still 6 games below 500. So I think we were at the point of, okay, yes, a lot of people deserve blame, but not everyone's going to get fired. There will be selective people that get dealt fired this offseason, and many gets fired, I will be jaw dropped, because that's the David Stearns hire. That's the pick. And unless Steve Cohen says verbatim, we got to get Mendy out of here, he is not going anywhere, and I don't think that's a bad thing. Mendy's far from perfect, but I think Mendy, like this Mets team, also is one of those things where we're going to see him continue to get better as he continues his managerial career. I think we saw a lot of great flashes from him last year. This year, not so much, but it's only his second year as an actual Major League Baseball manager, and it's easy for us to forget that when we're focused on solely winning baseball games, and every time we lose, it's Mendy's fault, because that's a typical mindset that the Mets fan is going to have. Peter, thank you for the donation. I appreciate that, Peter. There are two Barnes on the coaching staff. Eric Chavez, probably leaking information in the opposing team. He hates us. That's my conspiracy. That's hilarious, Peter. Thank you for the donation. I don't think that's happening. Warden NYY. No, Pat, we need to get you on the Mets train, but right now I don't blame you for not wanting to hop on right now. If you hop on, it's going to crash and burn. There's going to be nothing good if you hop on a train regarding the Mets at the moment. I can tell you that much. Oh my God. Reinstate your gimmicks, and maybe, just maybe, are you talking about gimmicks in the sense of what the Mets did last year with OMG, with Grimace, with everything else in between, Rally Pimp? Yeah, listen, the Mets had their opportunities to do their gimmicks this year, and they didn't work out. They had Elmo, and they had Big Bird at Citi Field a couple weeks ago, and that didn't even work either. We're trying everything. We're grasping at straws. We have tried everything, from the fan point of view, as well as the club point of view. Nothing, and I mean nothing, about this team is good right now. And speaking about what is bad with this team, let's get into how they faltered in this one, everybody. Let's give you a nice summarized fashion, rapid fire right here, right now. Jonathan, as I mentioned, did not have it today. And as unfortunate as it is, let's break down what he did wrong. Because Tom began the ball game by leading off Josh Smith with a walk. You know it's a terrible start to a ball game when your young starter's walking the first batter that he faces. He's not challenging him when Josh Smith is absolutely a guy that you should challenge. Then we see Wyatt Langford called out on strikes. Jock Pearson, who's been dreadful all season long, gets on with a walk as well. You're seeing the early adversity. Jonathan facing these lefty batters, not looking great early, pouting changeup that's going in the dirt, not locating, eerily similar to his changeup and how it looked in his last start where he was laboring, throwing in the dirt a lot of times there, and he was barely relying on the fastball. We saw Jake Berger fly out, and then we see, with 2 out, we see Josh Jung make it a 1-0 ball game for this Texas Raiders team. And the worst part, the biggest gut punch, is that this all happened with 2 effing outs. All Jonah needed was 1 more, and it couldn't happen because Alejandro Ozuna then goes opposite field and pokes himself a single. That makes it 2-0 Texas Rangers. Then it becomes what we see in 4-0 because it's an opposite field hit for Cody Freeman. And mind you, these are just sawed off hits. These are not hits where you're seeing Tong get barreled left, right, and center. This is more sawed off, good hitting, but very frustrating hitting to allow for Jonathan and this Mets team. They're down 4-0 early. Ton is at basically 40 pitches, and he allows a double, the 3rd of his season for Michael Hellman, and that makes it a hell of a time for this Mets club as they're down by 6 in the first inning. Huascar Brosman comes in. He gets a final out on Josh Smith, who started the inning, mind you, but the Mets are already in a 6-run hole. Can we all agree? Let me know, guys. I think we can all agree that as soon as the Mets were down 6, we all knew this team was going to lose the ball game. There was no denying that. And yes, Tong did get donned today. That's 100% true. Jonah, thank you for the donation. These were honest L's, getting outclassed, fine. They have given up many games through errors and an inability to manufacture runs consistently. Wholeheartedly. The Mets have had such a great collective effort in playing shit baseball. I mean, really, really bad baseball. Dave with the $2 haul. Thank you so much for that, Dave. The lobster is cooked. I know, the lobster is cooked. It's rubbery. It's been cooking 10 times longer than it's supposed to. If you know, you know. Jacob deGrom just says, it was really cool to get a tribute video tonight. These fans were great to me when I was here, and that was really nice of them to do. Jake, again, soft-spoken, simple man, no pun intended, even though that was quite literally a pun. They did not play Simple Man for Jake outside of, they did, I believe, play it initially in his tribute video, but they didn't play it for him actually getting ready and towing the rubber, which I found interesting, considering that they played the actual music of Harrison Bader's song from last year when he was at Citi Field a couple weeks ago. So it's like, You're going to do it for Bader, yet you can't do it to go out your way for your former ace that got no run support every year he was here. Probably one of the most mistreated Mets during his time as a Met, mind you. Not mistreatment from the fans, but mistreatment from the organization itself. The New York Mets treated Jacob deGrom like absolute pond scum for what he actually valued in this organization. For what he meant for this team, the Mets did nothing as reciprocation. They instead rolled over and died every single start because they thought to themselves, oh, Jake's on the mound, we have nothing to worry about. That's how pathetic this team was under the Waponzian regime over those years, and then the early years of Steve Cohen's years. Not Steve's fault, but just a continuation. No run support, and that was the continued problem. The fact that Jacob deGrom never had run support of 4 runs or more for this Mets team, yet got 6 runs in the first inning today for the Rangers, tells you every single thing you need to know in that regard. That's why I can't fault Jake for wanting to leave, the same way they also can't fault the Mets for not wanting to give him $200+ million technically when he's been an injured bug and went down with Tommy John right after signing that new contract with the Rangers. Peter with a $5 holla. Thank you again for that one from earlier, my guy. I do appreciate that. I'm just double checking to make sure that I don't miss anything here. Dave, thank you so much for that. As we continue on here, everybody, we would see the Mets roll over 1-2-3 in the first. And the second, what do we see? It's a bullpen game continued. Oscar Brosman gets through clean. The Mets get themselves a Mark Vientos single in the second. That's all she wrote. Marky V always having hitting. Every single game, Mark Vientos is doing something with the bat, even if it's not an RBI. Then we see guys in the bottom of the third. Francisco Alvarez greets Jacob deGrom brutally. Alvarez looking for his first home run since returning from injury, and he does exactly that. He goes opposite field on a four-seam fastball that was out of the zone. Alvarez chased it, he poked, and he got it for his 8th home run of the year there for Alvarez. 103 off the bat. He's amped up, he's ramped up, and not only was it huge for him to get that home run, to get some vibes going, but that was a nice little monkey off the back as well for someone like him too, that I think we can all agree. Alvarez makes it a 5-run ball game. Then we see a Lindor double, smokes that one right away off of deGrom, and after a Mullins single, Mets have runners at second and third. They're trying to cook early. They're down by 6, but they know that the ball game isn't over. Juan Soto smacks himself a sac fly. That makes it 6-2. Then we see it 6-3 with Alonso sac fly himself, and the Mets will go on to basically lose by that because nothing else happens for this entire ball game. Brett Beatty makes a nice snag that we see in the 5th inning. The offense continues to roll over and die against deGrom basically every single inning, and then we eventually find ourselves getting to the bottom of the 6th. And then bottom of the 6th inning, everybody, we see Gregory Soto look like shit yet again. I like Gregory Soto, but the struggling Gregory Soto that we saw in parts of the first half this year continued again in this one. Soto, who looked horrendous in his final outing against the Phillies, also looked terrible today as he gave up a 2-run meatball to Dylan Moore, his 11th home run of the year there for Dylan Moore. That made it 8-3 Texas Rangers lead. And after a wild pitch there by Soto, mind you, that continued the ball rolling, Heim would strike out, but not before the Rangers are then up 8-3 in this ball game. As we continue on in this one, that would be it. The Mets would have nothing else to show. They would roll over, they would die, and they would lose this one again by a final score of 8-3. Let's get to these donations and let's get to breaking down some of these numbers and everything else in between, everybody. Thank you guys kindly for hitting that like and subscribe on your way in and on your way out. I really appreciate that. Make sure to help us get a 300+ likes to all of our live and recurring viewers, and also help us get to 35,000 subscribers, everybody, because we're giving away a jersey to one lucky subscriber of whatever player you currently want on the team. And all you got to do is subscribe to the platform and join our live stream approximately a week after we hit 35,000 subscribers. And don't worry, I will keep you guys well up to date on our community tab on the channel, as well as in our respective video content, YouTube content, everything in between there, to let you guys know when that stream is happening. We're only a couple hundred subs away. Thank you so much in advance for that. Sharon, thank you so much for the $10 holla. The veteran hitters on our team are choking, serving their balls up like Rocky Mountain oysters on a platter. Alonso, Lindor, Soto, Nimmo, nothing for 2 weeks. Who is the leader of this team? It's a great question. We've wanted to believe that's Francisco Lindor, but there's been little to no leadership that I think that we've collectively seen throughout the course of this season. David with a $5 haul. Thank you, David. This brand of baseball is what the Mets really are. It's in their DNA. It's the paint on the walls. Sadly, you're correct today. I'm just waiting for the day where that is not the case. We finally got that yesterday, and oh my God, do I envy the 2024 Mets. You would have never said that a month in the season last year, but we're all envying the 2024 Mets right now. We really are. I miss that team dearly. I miss the excitement that they brought. I miss the fun entertainment baseball. I miss the fact that every single night you knew that you couldn't count out the Mets no matter what all summer long. I desperately miss that. I miss looking forward to watching Mets games. I miss getting excited to look forward to make Mets content and talk to thousands of people every single day. I love what I do. I will always be passionate about my work for sure, but I would be lying to each and every one of you guys if I said that I've enjoyed sitting here to talk on a daily basis the past 3 months, because I most certainly haven't. I can deal with a lot. I can tolerate a lot, and I know I have to, because that is what people in the content game have to do when you cover a team for a living. But by God, has it been a drag, and has it been a weighing on the mental for yours truly when this team has played sorry baseball as consistently as they have throughout the course of the season this year. It just continues to get from bad to absolutely down horrendous. Thank you guys for those donations. On the pitching end, again, Mets had nothing. Jonathan, I'm not going to give a grade for Jonah today because he couldn't even get a first inning out of it. Again, an 8-year rate to begin Tong's career. I really feel terrible for him, because this was the risk the Mets took, and this is why I told you guys from the start, literally from the start, that these kind of things could happen. We could see the kids get exposed, get rocked, and we just have to deal with it, because again, this is the game that you're playing when you go out of your way to not make enough moves. When you had ample opportunity to do so in the first half, everyone rolls over and dies in the rotation. Every veteran gives up essentially, and there's that. And the Giants just got the lead against the Dodgers early in the ball game. So there you go, everybody. The Mets already look like that they're going to have their wild card standing basically gone like just like that, depending on what's going to happen from there. deGrom said it was strange to face the likes of Alonso and McNeil after being their teammates on the Mets, he said. I agree. It was really strange watching Jake on the mound today face the Mets. It honestly felt like he was facing the Mets in a spring training game where the Mets play the Mets. That's kind of how it felt when he was out there. It felt very normal when Jake was on the mound and working quick. It was refreshing to see him on the mound do that. Honestly, like there was moments I was watching him where I was saying to myself, oh, like Jake's toeing the rubber, like we're in good standing today. And then I was like, oh shit. Like that was 3 years ago, the last time that I could say that. Like I can never say again, ever, in Jacob deGrom's career more than likely, that, oh, like he had himself a strong start for the Mets. Jacob deGrom was there. No one else showed up, but Jacob deGrom showed up. I said that many times over the many years of covering the Mets leading up to deGrom leaving this team. And it's just an absolute shame to kind of see it, again, him continue to do his thing. And the Mets look like a team that obviously could have utilized him this year, as he's having the most innings that he's pitched since the late 2010s. Granted, I understood why he didn't return. I understood why the Mets didn't get the final say. I understood why the Mets didn't love the contract that he was given by the Rangers to begin with. While understanding all those factors, I can still look back and say that obviously I miss Jake like most Mets fans. The bullpen was nails today. Excluding Gregory Soto, this bullpen was tremendous for a complete bullpen game that they did not have written up initially. This was not initially planned. So even with Reed Garrett, who was really making me sweat bullets. I did not like how Reed Garrett looked today at all. Between Soto and Garrett, it was more of the same nonsense. I didn't like how either pitched today for the most part. But this Mets bullpen, Helsley going to scroll setting somehow, Stanek Brazaban eating you 3+ without a problem. That alone is why I'm going to actually give the bullpen today a 6 out of 10, because Brazaban carried the weight and carried it very well. On the hitting end, everybody, let's take a look at this shit show. Listen, I get it. The Mets had 5 hits, 3 runs today. How did they fare with runners in scoring position total? And this one, they were a total of as follows, everybody. Let's take a look real quick here. Let me just see if I can pull it up. The Mets today with runners in scoring position. Why can't I find the numbers here? This is a bit bizarre. Why are they not in the spot that they normally are by MLB? MLB, what are we doing here, MLB? There we go. MLB, I don't understand. I'm looking at the runners in scoring position for the Rangers. They went 4 for 14 and left 8 on base. Yet I'm looking at the Mets side, and the runner in scoring position option is not there. I got to refresh this just to see if it's going to show up. Like, why are you not showing up? I just don't understand this. Everything about tonight's incompetent. I'm looking forward to... Is it over yet? It's probably over now. It's 10:37. What am I saying? Damn it. It happened over an hour ago already. I was hoping that I could catch some of the BKFC card today. For those that don't know what that is, that's bare knuckle boxing. Yes, that is as straightforward as you think it is. Yoel Romero, 48-year-old former UFC fighter, former fighter in multiple mixed martial arts organizations, who's probably been steroided up for the past 10 years, was in phenomenal shape, and was facing a guy that looked like he just got off of working his usual 9 to 5 with his beer gut and everything. And the 48-year-old Romero had a big knockout in the second round. I was looking forward to watching that. I'm going to watch all the replay after this. Big fight night tomorrow as well for any of my fight fans out there. I'm doing a tangent because this is far more interesting than talking about the Mets dropping their 7th straight game. So listen up. To anyone that has interest in boxing and UFC, tomorrow's a big day. I look forward to it. I'm actually very grateful that the Mets play a 4 o'clock game tomorrow so they don't ruin my entire evening. I can actually have something to look forward to, which is UFC Noche, which is headlined by Diego Lopez fighting Pitbull, Gene Silva, and what's going to be a big fight there for the main event. And then you have Canelo, Crawford, huge boxing fight. I'm usually not a big boxing guy, but tomorrow's going to be a fun one. I'm looking forward to that. So if any of you guys have interest in watching those, make sure that you set the time and have yourself locked in and ready. Should be more entertaining than anything the Mets likely give us tomorrow. So just telling you now, if you're looking forward to anything tomorrow, that might be something you should look forward to. As we continue on from here, if you guys hate fighting, all that stuff, that's fine. I get it. It's bloody. It's nasty. I get it. It's for sick individuals like myself that like to see guys beat the shit out of each other. What can I say? I can't do it, so someone else has to. As we continue on here, runners in scoring position still not popping up. I'm going to throw my mouse in 2 seconds. Why can't you show me what I want you to show me right now? All I want to know is how the Mets fared with runners in scoring position today. Can someone relay this to me? Otherwise, I can't find it. Hold on. Let's go. Let me take a look real quick. It's literally not popping up. I'm not going crazy. See, it makes sense. I like violent beatings. That's why I'm a Mets fan, right? It's fitting. That's great wordplay. I think they don't want us. Wait. Did it just hit me? No, I was going to say, I'm like, the Mets had runners in scoring position today. Lindor had a double. I know they had a runner in scoring position today. I'm like, is it not showing me because they don't have any runners at all in scoring position? I'm not lying, guys. I don't know what's happening with the MLB app. Usually it's there. This is the Texas Rangers. Just for context, if you guys see right down there, it's going to probably, there you go. You see, guys, how it says runners in scoring position. That's for the Texas Rangers. You see that? Maybe because they have the sack flies? Is that why? It has to be because of the sack flies. That's the only thing I could logically think of. Because that was the Texas Rangers stats. But then when I show you the Mets, there's literally nothing there. That's the only thing that I can assume at this point in time. Alonso, 114 RBIs on the year. Alvarez with 25. And Soto with 96. Yeah, that has to be why. Otherwise, I don't know. Who cares? Mets lost 8-3. Why do I care? Why did I spend the past 5 minutes caring? By a show of hands, if you guys have smartphones, use your hand emojis that you can use in the live chat. If you're watching replay, the same applies. By a show of hands, how many of you think the Mets season is over? Like it's cooked. There's 2 weeks left, but you think it's over. Like they're done. Raise the hand. Spam it if that's how you feel. I'm just curious. I want to get a temperature gauge of everyone in here. And Greg, thank you so much for the kind words. I appreciate that. This stuff is not fun at all on a nightly basis when they've been this bad. So trust me when I say I appreciate the kind words. It always keeps me chugging, I'll tell you that much. Greg says it's not over. I love the optimism. Hell of the no, says Moon Shadow. And I'm doing this not to, I'd like to make something clear. I'm not doing this because I want the season to be over. I'm just asking a genuine question. How many of you guys think this season is over? Not over. Still in that last spot. Hard to believe, but not over. You got to believe. I agree you got to believe. I've been trying to believe, but it hasn't got me anything, unfortunately, at this point. The fat lady has not sung yet. This is true, and I agree with you on that. I am usually never the type of fan to say a season is over for the Mets until it's officially over. And that has a lot to do with me and my delusional ass self watching every game on my phone down the stretch or on TV, you know, no matter what I'm doing when I was younger, before I cover the Mets, mind you. We're talking like high school, middle school, high school Wardy, just watching in any way that I possibly could, knowing that the Mets are still like 10 games out of the final wildcard spot, but my sorry ass still holding on to hope because the season wasn't over yet. Until they officially get bounced, I'm always going to be a believer. That holds true here today as well, but nothing about me is instilled with confidence. Two things can be true at the same time. Can I think that the season's not over yet? Yes. Can I also think that there's no reason to be confident about this team at all this year? Yes, absolutely. Both things can be true. Lindor, 263 average, 787 OPS. Soto, 262 average, 923 OPS. Alonso, 265 average, 850 OPS. Nimmo, 259 average, 761 OPS. Vientos, 242 average, 733 OPS. McNeil, 260 average, 788 OPS. Mauricio, 228 average, 671 OPS. Beatty, 253 average, 744 OPS. Alvarez, 256 average, 766 OPS. And Mullins, 220 average, 701 OPS. Step right up and meet the Mets. That was your offense today. Never hated the Mets. Hell, kind of like the Mets. They're from NY. Their fans are New Yorkers like me, but the Soto stunt was a bad look. I don't know what you mean by stunt. You're a Yankees fan, I can tell. There was no stunt when it comes to signing Juan Soto, so I didn't want to think that there was. The Mets had Juan Soto in their sights since Steve Cohen became owner, if not before that. But the difference is that the Wilpons are delusional and have their sights set on a player just to keep him on the wall as a poster and never even consider spending a dime. Steve Cohen was locked in on Soto from the start. And I had utmost confidence in the Mets signing Soto a year and a half prior to them even doing it. It had nothing to do with him going to the Yankees. It had everything to do with the fact of what Steve and the Mets can provide and sell, which is greater than any organization at the time. It's true. They were in greater standing to spend than the Dodgers, and they were in greater standing to spend than the Yankees. And that spending and that hospitality with building for not only for Soto, but for his whole family is what helped pry him away from the Yanks to bring him to the Mets. And to any fan out there that thinks that Juan Soto doesn't want to be a Met right now, sure, he may be very disgruntled and frustrated with the lack of good play right now, no doubt about it. But Juan is not hanging his head because of his performance. I think that's a very important thing to make note of. There was times this year where he was hanging his head low, as we saw looking terrible in Yankee Stadium when the Mets lost 2 out of 3 there to the Yanks in the Subway Series. He looks completely all the way back for the most part. Juan Soto, far from the problem, part of the solution. Unfortunately, it does not appear that he is going to be a part of that solution here, at least in 2025, because I don't think the Mets are going to have that solution until it's too little too late. I really do hope I'm proven wrong, but I've yet for that to be the case. I really do. Second highest payroll, and we play like shit. Exactly. Money does not mean anything. That wasn't abundantly clear by now. Goes like everything else in life. You know, everyone that I talk to that has money, that's wealthy, they say that, you know, money does not provide happiness. Money provides opportunities to find happiness is what it provides. Money helps relieve stress because it makes life easier when you don't have to worry about, you know, going paycheck to paycheck and all these other things. Money is not going to necessarily bring you the happiness that you're looking for. And when I look at this Mets team and I look at the dollars that they've spent, yes, we were all very happy and excited with the early spending of Steve Cohen. But what we have learned, just like anyone else, is that spending money does not necessarily equal results. And unfortunately for us, this is yet another year where Steve Cohen does everything in his power to make this team good, as never for a lack of effort. He spent more money this past offseason than he ever had for the organization for the most part. And even then, even in that circumstance, and I actually shouldn't say that because Steve Cohen spent $1.2 billion a couple off seasons ago, so he's not opposed to doing this. And another offseason where he spends an absolute haul, and there's nothing to show for it. I feel for Steve Cohen, genuinely. I really do, from a fan point of view. Not about every other aspect of his life. I know that he obviously has been intertwined with a lot of things, both good and bad, when it comes to the business side. I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about solely the fan that spent multiple billions of dollars to buy the Mets in the first place. I feel for this man who is hoping for a championship in a 3 to 5 year window. Easier said than done, but man, oh man, is that an understatement. Steve Cohen is going to look back on these 2025. That's a massive fly in here. Holy shit, where did you come from? My God. Shouldn't you be dead? It's like mid-September. Bugs are not supposed to be a thing now. Get out of here. It's going to smack me in my face or go down my throat before the end of the live show. It's going to be terrible. Cohen has done his thing. He's not the problem. The problem is we're not putting together the right team. And if this Mets team does not get on a run the way that I hope that they do, if they do not make playoffs the way that we all are feeling is a greater likely by the second, not only will there need to be a lot of self-reflection as we head in the offseason, but they're not only going to see changes, but you're going to see probably a more scorched earth Steve Cohen than you have in years past. I can only imagine how pissed off that man is right now. I can only imagine. The fact that he is barely look in the mirror. Oh, I'm sure he's behind me, right? The fact that he has not spoken publicly as much as he typically does is notable, because he is probably a ticking time bomb. And I can only imagine the conversations that he has had as of late with David Stearns and or Carlos Mendoza. That is where I think we're probably getting more of the Steinbrenner connections than anything. Not just on the spending the millions upon billions of dollars, but on maybe, having a loose gasket every once in a while, having one pop off. He's a fan just like us. And if he's a true fan, then he's definitely lost his shit a fair share of times, because he can be the multi-billionaire all he wants, but he bought this team even while being financially comfortable, so comfortable in his life, because of the frustration the Mets give him because they haven't went about their winning ways. Steve Cohen went out of his way to buy this Mets organization because of how fed up he's been with them not being a good baseball club. And for what appears now, at the current rate that we are at, it's going to be a 4-year out of 5-year plan in which this team has not even gotten close to meeting the expectations in the grand scheme of things. And the only year that they did is after everyone and their mother wrote off the team from their initial expectations. And that was 2024. Mets are Texas toast? No, they're not, because Texas toast tastes good. This team tastes like shit. This team tastes like an American trying Vegemite for the first time after his Australian buddy said, "Oh, it's great, we put it on everything." You take one little bite. I come from a land down under. Now I'm thinking of that song because they have Vegemite in it. Great song, if you know, you know. That is Alex Volkanovski's walkout song for my UFC fight fans. All right, I'm done. I'm out of here. This team sucks. They're not good. They're not good. It is what it is. Hopefully they'll be good tomorrow. If not, we're going to sit here and talk about the same shit and act like it's something different. Have a good night, everybody. Try to have a good night. It's going to be better than mine.